to be live streaming the debate. And look, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be awesome. And this is for Senate seat 39. So if you can hear me, Kathy Kelly, write something in the chat for me. Check. We're going to go live early to get people in the room, but we're not going to start for a couple minutes. So again, welcome. Oh, good. I see some hearts going on. I'm going to show you some stuff in the room. What's awesome is Lauren Burke is here. Hey, Lauren. Oh, Elizabeth Bennett's in the room too. Lauren, come here. Get right in here. Say hi to Lauren.
Hey, how you doing? What's your camera? Oh, there.
Right here.
How are you? Oh, duh.
There you go.
I think I would know that. How's it going?
Right on top.
You guys are going to get a treat tonight with Michael Lee Pope as the moderator. It's going to be a great night. I guess I should get lower. Anyway, this is a great idea doing this live. Yeah, get in there. Get in there. Get in there. What's up? Live stream.
We're getting some feedback here. We got some people in the crowd even that want to get on. We're having a lot of fun. We're ripping it tonight in Alexandria. We have the candidates tonight. We have Charles Sumpter is going to be here. And guess what about Charles Sumpter? He announced his run at Deco Lounge Hookah Bar on Duke Street. All right, good for Charles. So he'll be in the room where he co-founded Safe Spaces in Nova. How awesome. And then we have Mark Levine, of course. You know, what do you think about Mark? He'd be real critical right now because he's a former talk show host. So he's comfortable on the mic. We'll get to see Mark tonight. He launched his campaign at a supporter's home in Old Town. And that's pretty awesome. Oh, and then we have Elizabeth Bennett-Parker. Many of you may know her. She's the delegate for Alexandria. And of course, we all know why we're doing this, right? Senator Mark Ebbin, Adam Ebbins, he's going to go up into the cabinet. So we're here tonight. He announced his campaign within an hour. She announced her campaign within an hour of the resignation of the candidate. She held a packed kickoff at the Evening Star Cafe in Del Rey. So how awesome. Amy Jackson, who is the vice mayor of Alexandria, can't be here tonight, but she has sent her regards. It was very, as you know, this election's last minute, Charlie. So Amy could not be here, but we're excited. So we're going to get started in a couple minutes. I'm going to hand the mic back to Michael Pope, who's moderating. And we love Michael. We're glad that we have him tonight. He's the best. We're going to have some music interlude and we'll get started. Let me know in the chat if there's any issues. But like I said, this is our first time doing something cool like this. Glad you're here.
Okay. Yes. All right. Is this better? Okay. Great. All right. Again, this is Catherine Wythe. She's with Network Nova. She is live streaming. That is the live stream there. Network Nova. It's on Substack. At Network Nova Live. At Network Nova Live. So if you want to tell your friends to tune in and watch the debate live, please do, or campaigns. Please let your followers know. So next up, we have Ricardo Alfaro. Okay. And he came in last minute to do our technical work. Before I hand the mic over, I would like to thank the staff of the Charles Houston Rec Center who got the space ready. We always like to thank our workers who put the hard work into doing events like this. And here's Catherine.
All right, I'm going to talk to the live audience out there. We're glad you're tuning in. It's exciting tonight to have a debate, democracy in action. Let's give a round of applause for what that looks like. We have some great candidate lineup. We're going to have a lot of fun. The room is packed, and I'll show you that later. But out in the audience, if you have any problems, put it in the chat. I'll be monitoring it. But pay attention to the audio. The video may get a little crazy as we're live streaming, and Substack has its limitations. So I'm Catherine Wythe. I'm host of the Friday Power Lunch and also organize the Women's Summit with Network Nova. And we do a lot of stuff to get great candidates elected. So we're glad to be here. Thank you so much. And I'm going to hand it off to Ricardo. Oh, Jonathan Krall. Here you go.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Krall. I'm with Grassroots Alexandria. Thank you. We will be doing the timing, and we helped discuss this whole thing back and forth in the last 24 hours to pull this together. But a round of applause for Boyd for pulling all this together. And so I get to introduce our moderator, who is Michael Lee Pope, local news reporter, journalist, and author. He reports for Virginia Public Radio and hosts the Virginia Press Room podcast. And he basically took his podcast studio here, so that's why we have all these microphones. So we hand it over to Michael.
Thank you so much. All right. Wow. For the naysayers who said we could never get it done, look at this room. This is pretty exciting. Thank you all so much for coming out. A little bit of background here for what we're going to do. I wanted to make sure that we got all the, we're going to have quick opening statements, and that is going to last 60 seconds each. I'm going to start all the way over. I'm sorry, what? So one of our candidates wants a 2-minute opening statement. Okay. When I personally originally had a rundown, I was hoping for 2 minutes, but we have a lot of candidates up here. So I think our timekeeper is ready for, I'll tell you what, let's do a 2-minute opening statement. That's fine. All right. All right. So we're going to start with stage left to your right, Mark Levine. He's going to have the first opening statement, and then Charles Sumpter, and then Elizabeth Bennett-Parker. So Mark Levine, you've got 2 minutes on the clock, and let's get started. Your first candidate is former delegate Mark Levine.
Thrilled to see all the people in this room. This is what democracy looks like, right? We are all here, but the room is full. It's standing room only because the choice in this election is up to you, the voters. And all of you in this room recognize that, and all the people listening, wherever you are, live streaming, recognize that it is your choice. You need to choose the person you think next needs to be in the Virginia Senate. In my view, our country is facing the greatest crisis of my lifetime. We have a federal government that is out to get us. They're sending troops into American cities. They're sending ICE. And just 5 days ago, a young mother of 3, Renee Good, was murdered. And yes, I used the word clearly, murdered. And the guy needs to be tried. And then 2 people in Portland. We are facing a corrupt authoritarian regime. And as far as I'm concerned, This is no time to be complacent. This is no time for small pieces of legislation that make our world a little bit better. I am not against small pieces of legislation that make our world a little bit better. The General Assembly is full of people who do that. That's not how I roll. I've always gone for the big stuff. And sometimes I succeed and sometimes I don't. But it seems to me that as the first delegate to introduce paid family medical leave, it hasn't succeeded, but I'm not done trying. So it hasn't succeeded yet. Or as someone who did Virginia's first body cameras law, or the person who is the reason why you live stream and archive everything in the General Assembly, even though leaders of both parties told me no, and I lost my mentor on the second day. The most comprehensive gay rights bill, LGBT rights bill in Virginia history, sexual and domestic violence centers 24/7 so people can be taken care of, a fantastic animal abuse law, one of the strongest Virginia has that I did work with Republicans on. I've done a lot of things. Go to levineforvirginia.com. I have a very long record I'm proud of. Thank you.
All right, now let's get to our next candidate, Charles Sumner.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Sumpter. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm running for this job to be your Virginia State Senator because I'm not a politician. I'm someone from the neighborhood who saw problems and fixed it. I was born and raised in the New York City housing project to two parents who worked blue-collar jobs. Not only just them, but I had grandmothers, aunts, and uncles who made sure that I did not fall through the cracks. As a result of that, I was able to go to college on scholarships and loans. And when I got out, I moved to the DMV. I moved to Alexandria. When I got here in Northern Virginia some 15 years ago, it broke my heart when I saw families and LGBTQ youth being thrown out of their homes for who they were. And as a result of that, I helped to found a nonprofit called Safe Space Nova in Alexandria, which has literally saved the lives of thousands of youth across Northern Virginia. When I saw those issues, I didn't ask for permission. I just jumped in and helped, like my family did, so I didn't fall through the cracks when I came out as who I was. One of the other reasons why I'm in this race as well is because I am deeply concerned about public education. And I understand that that looks differently for some people and for some students, and that is okay. As your Virginia State Senator, I will fight for not only just public schools, for trade programs, apprenticeship programs, career pathways, so students have the skills to have a job, to actually be able to provide for themselves and their families. That's what I'm concerned about, affordability, because I lived it, I know it, and I want to do my best job to make sure that no student has to think about that again. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Now we're going to go on to our next candidate, who is current member of the Virginia House of Delegates, Elizabeth Bennett-Parker.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Bennett-Parker, and I'm honored to serve as a delegate in the 5th District. First, I want to thank Senator Ebbin for his service and endorsement. I know I join all of you in expressing our gratitude for his decades of service that have made a real difference in people's lives. I've had the honor of serving our community in the House for the past 4 years. And during this time, I became the 5th woman in the House in its then 405-year history to give birth while in office. My daughter inspires me every day to get up and to do this work. I want her to live in a Virginia where she can make her own decisions about her body. I want her to be safe from gun violence at school and everywhere else for that matter. I want her schools to be fully funded, and I want her teachers to be well paid. I also want her teachers to be free to teach our true history, the good and the bad. I want her to have clean air to breathe and a safe planet to live on. I want her to have the freedom to be whoever she wants to be and to love whomever she wants to love. I want her to be able to afford to live in our community. I want her and all children and all Virginians to thrive. But we all know that we are living under the Trump regime, which has shown their commitment to stripping us of our rights, yanking our social safety net out from under our feet when we need it the most, tanking our economy, and even shooting innocent families and people and tearing families apart under the premise of false premise of public safety. I will continue to fight back for you and our values in Richmond. Session starts in just 2 days, and I'm proud to be introducing a number of bills to address the issues facing our community, from making housing more affordable, providing school breakfast to all public schoolers, advancing energy efficiency, making the ultra-wealthy pay their fair share of taxes, preventing gun violence, supporting disabled veterans, and so much more. In the Senate, I will continue to pass policies that protect our communities, strengthen our democracy, and move us forward despite the obstacles. I'm honored to have the endorsements of Senator Ebbin, Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, many others. I hope to earn your support. And finally, I want to share that I was invited to the event yesterday morning, and I had to find last-minute childcare to participate at all. I requested that the event be moved earlier so that I could participate in the full time, but that request was denied. So I will be leaving at 7:45 p.m. to care for my daughter, and I am upset that I have to leave early, but I thank you all for your understanding of those circumstances.
And we're glad that you could be here. Thanks for coming here and fitting us into your schedule. There is one candidate who you're not seeing on the stage, former Vice Mayor Amy Jackson, but we do have a representative from her campaign, Jenny Franco. If you could wave your hand. If you're interested in Amy Jackson or want any of her grip cards, please see Jenny Franco. Okay, so we are kind of doing this on the fly. As Elizabeth Bennett-Parker just mentioned, we kind of have been putting the details together as we're building the plane as it's flying, I guess. That's the thing that people always talk about. But okay, so I'm going to throw a loop to our timekeepers here because there was some talk about having 2-minute answers. I kind of like that better. People can give a more full answer. Candidates, you don't have to use the full 2 minutes. So what I'm going to do is start. So we started the opening on Levine. I'm going to go down here and start first question on Charles Sumpter, and then Elizabeth Bennett-Parker is going to get the second bite at that question. Mark Levine is going to get the third bite. For the next question, Elizabeth is going to be first. I'm going to do it that way. So Charles Sumpter, you're first with this. The first question of the evening, and I wanted to focus our attention on this special election. There has been a lot of discussion about why is this so fast? Why do we only have a couple days? And Virginia law actually is very constricted as to what can be done. I'm curious about what the candidates think about Virginia election law in terms of this election and how quick things had to be. Would you like to see any changes maybe to Virginia election law? Charles Sumpter, we'll start with you. You have 2 minutes, but you don't have to use all 2 minutes.
Absolutely. This is a travesty of democracy that we found this out when we did. Now, things happen. People resign. People pass away. Senators get new jobs. That happens. But this is extremely undemocratic. Every door that I knocked on, no one knew there was an election. I barely knew. And I'm connected as a lot of people are. And so that is something that is incredibly wrong. That is not democratic. So at least 30 days, there should be a notice of 30 days that the residents have a chance to get to know that there's an election upcoming. People have to go to work. People work odd hours. The party has to get this all going. Like, this is stress on all of us and the candidates who have kids, who are working. So I thank all of us for being here and for us for jumping in this. But we have to do this because our residents don't know what's happening. And it's up to us to make sure they do that. And so I think by extending the time for at least 30 days, we'll give people an opportunity to voice to make a plan, to vote, to support the candidate that they want, or jump in if they want to. That's why I did. Democracy demands it.
Charles Sumpter, follow-up question. Is that 30 days before a primary? Is it 30 days advance notice of the primary election?
Of the primary.
Okay. All right. Elizabeth Bennett-Parker, same question. This has been a lightning fast election. What's your take on the existing Virginia code, and would you like to see any changes being made to it?
Thank you for the question. This election timing has been pure chaos. It hasn't been great for anyone. It hasn't been great for the local parties that have had to establish voting sites, set those hours, staff them with volunteers. It hasn't been great for the candidates. I could go into more detail on that with session starting in 2 days and a toddler and a husband out of town. It hasn't been great, most importantly, for the voters. I certainly want as many people to be as informed about their elections and their candidates and their choices, and to be able to vote and to access the voting locations and have absentee voting or opportunities for folks who aren't in town to be able to vote as well, for example. That is important to our democracy. State law, as we've discussed, mandates a very quick turnaround in the case of vacancies that occur right before or during session. And I imagine that the original intent of that was to make sure that residents were not disenfranchised during the legislative session when we pass and consider thousands of bills that affect everyone's daily lives. And in the particular case of this particular election, we have a 1-seat Democratic majority in the state Senate. And so when we think about that, I think it's important to the values of Alexandria, Arlington, and Fairfax that seat is filled. It would be bad to not have that seat filled and in terms of stopping the progress that we need to fight back against Trump and what's happening across the river. All that is to say that I think there's things to weigh here. And I certainly, as much as this insane experience makes me want to change the law, I need some more time to think about what that right time frame is and what the implications of it are. I haven't had that time in the past, however many days it's been.
Same question to former delegate Mark Levine. What's your take on election law currently, and would you like to see any changes specific to this kind of a special election?
So Charles is right. This is insane. It is wrong. It is undemocratic. It's unfair. Elizabeth is right that voters shouldn't be disenfranchised. We have to take both into account. And when former school board member Chris Lewis, sorry to call you out, put this on Facebook and said, what's the solution? I thought about it and I came up with 3 creative proposals that you can find on Facebook. And yeah, I was running for election, but I knew we needed to fix this. And I thought it was very important. So I'll briefly give you my proposals. One is illness and death, you can't help it, but resignation, you can. And it seems to me if you are elected to serve the Commonwealth and you want to resign to do something else, all right, you give a 60-day notice, maybe a 30-day, we'll negotiate. But the point is at least 30 days, and you keep serving, and you could take your job. I'm sorry, Senator Ebbin, but you could take your job as the senior advisor at the Cannabis Commission 60 days later. I don't think the Commonwealth will fall apart, but I don't want Democrats to be disenfranchised. Elizabeth is right. And I certainly want us to have a democracy. Charles is right. That's one solution. Another solution, I'll be real quick. You can do ranked choice voting. Forget the primaries. Jungle. Everybody comes in, Democrats, Republicans. Then we have 30 days, and then everybody gets to vote for the candidate they want. Doesn't matter in a Democratic district or Republican district. Third option, and again, I'm open. We're going to have a Mark's Monthly meetup and discuss this and figure out the best legislation. The third option, maybe the most creative, I try to be creative, is to have a designee, to have every senator and delegate be able to designate chief of staff, maybe a spouse, someone they trust to take over in the event, because this would affect sickness and death too. If they're gone, their chief of staff, maybe their spouse, would take over, be able to vote in committee, they'd be acting delegate or acting senator, but they wouldn't be able to run in the ensuing election. They could run in the next election if they did a good job, but this would make sure that people continue to be represented, but we still have democracy.
All right, now it's time for our second question. I'm going to start with Elizabeth Bennett-Parker, then we're going to go to Mark Levine, then Charles Sumpter. 2 minutes on the clock for each of the candidates. The next question is about the word that's on everybody's mind, affordability. This is the affordability year. Everybody's got an affordability option. If you listen to NPR, you might have heard a story this morning about the Equal Pay Act that is a proposal that would prevent employers from asking about salary history. That's on the affordability agenda. There's also a bill that would allow local governments to hit up developers to have certain percentages of their developments as affordable housing. Alexandria already does this, but many jurisdictions do not. Senator McPike has a bill that would allow every jurisdiction to do that. But I want to know what's on your affordability agenda, candidates, starting with Elizabeth Bennett-Parker. If you're elected to the state Senate, what's on your affordability agenda?
Thank you for the question. So I have a number of bills coming up in this legislative session related to affordability. I have 3 housing affordability bills. One has been included in Governor-elect Spanberger's affordability agenda as well to help our localities preserve existing affordable housing. We know that we have an affordable housing crisis right now with the inventory that we have, and we can't afford to lose any more units. I also have a bill to help prevent evictions, as well as a bill to address the cost of housing rental application fees and make sure that landlords aren't gouging tenants. In addition to supporting a number of my colleagues' bills in this area, including one that gives localities the ability to enact anti-rent gouging. For example, I think obviously we have a housing crisis. We also have an affordable childcare crisis. And I've put in bills and continue to put in budget amendments and bills to address that issue and make sure that all children in Virginia can access, or all parents and families can access quality, affordable childcare, recognizing that that's not only important for our children and giving them a great start in their education, but also important to families and to our economy. I think that healthcare also, again, Trump is destroying our economy. The loss of the Affordable Care Act premium subsidies is something that we need to address at the state level. I've also worked with my colleagues on legislation to have a prescription drug affordability board to bring those costs down. And I think we've also, since I've been in the General Assembly, provided tax relief to Virginians in a number of ways, and we'll continue to do that this upcoming session. At the same time, I'm interested in how we pay for some of these things, and I am very interested in tax reform. I have passed bills and am carrying more bills this year to make sure that the ultra-wealthy pay their fair share of taxes to help us afford some of the other things that we need to afford to benefit all Virginians.
Former Delegate Mark Levine, what's on your affordability agenda?
I have voted in the past in favor of the Equal Pay Act. I've co-patroned the bill. I've also supported the developer's contribution. I also have had bills on evictions and letting people know their legal rights, because a lot of times people are about to be evicted don't know their legal rights. I've long supported the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. But I've also shot for the moon on a few things that haven't succeeded yet. Oh, by the way, I also voted for every single increase in the minimum wage. I wanted to go higher than I got. But there's more we can do. And some of this I've tried and haven't succeeded yet. Everything I do is either success or not succeeded yet, because I don't quit. But I had a proposal that was considered so radical that my Democratic colleagues turned me down, but I'm going to convince them. And it's called healthcare transparency. If you are going to get an operation, not an emergency operation, but, maybe a hip replacement or a knee, something like that, you should have the right to shop around. To me, that's capitalism, right? You should have a right to know exactly before the procedure, exactly what it's going to cost. And it may be that a hospital down in Roanoke does a knee replacement $20,000 cheaper, and you're going to go ahead and make that drive down to Roanoke. There's no excuse for these hospitals and insurance companies to say, we can't figure it out. If you can figure it out after the fact, you can figure it out before the fact. If there's some weird emergency or virus that comes in, I had acceptance of that. All right, that's one thing. I also allowed localities to raise the minimum wage, because the cost of living is different in Alexandria and Arlington and Fairfax than it is in other areas of the country. Allow localities to set their minimum wage. I worked with Lee Carter to lower the cost of insulin. That's before they did it later, the Biden administration. That's why it's lower today. I have a plan to lower the cost of college. It has to do with, frankly, getting rid of some of the administrators we don't need and making sure that the students have it. And the last and most way to help affordability is unions. They are the key to the middle class. I have done everything to support them. I will be the best friend unions ever had.
All right. Thank you so much, former Delegate Mark Levine. Our next candidate to answer what's on your affordability agenda, Charles Sumpter.
Thank you. As someone who grew up, like I said, in public housing, affordability was always on our mind. One of the things I've always thought about coming from New York originally was rent control and being able to control caps on the amount that rents can go up, or at least align it to the consumer price index. No, it's been tried. No, it hasn't happened. But that is something that I am really, really supportive of. Allowing localities to also do that if the state won't do that. But I want the state to do it, so that localities don't have to keep wasting time on that. The state has a lot of power to do that. If you ask me, I'd love to get rid of the Dillon rule to allow localities to do the things that they need to do without the state coming in, especially when places like Northern Virginia are putting so much of our tax dollars downstate that we don't get back. So we're having to come up with things to pay for more than we actually have in tax revenue, which I think is a problem for our jurisdiction in general. When it comes to healthcare, a lot of my friends who I talk to know that I've worked in the HIV/AIDS work for a long time. With the big, ugly bill, there are potential cuts to Ryan White Act funds, which are hurting Virginians, which will hurt Virginians if the state can't fill that hole. How do we do that? People can't pay for their medications, which means they're going to die. So people are going to die. And they say, Charles, how am I going to pay for my HIV medications? Can the state help? Can the city help? And so those are the things that I am thinking about when it comes to affordability. When it comes to rent as well, a lot of times people could use payment plans to try to rent. We can allow landlords to allow that. There are other ways around that. Credit checks. When people have bad credit and can't rent, they pay these exorbitant fees. So they can't rent. Where are they supposed to go? No one is talking about that. So these are ideas and concepts that I'm thinking about if I go to the General Assembly. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Our next question is going to go first to Mark Levine, and then we're going to come down the panel this way. And it is about another issue that we have heard a lot of talk about, which is power bills. Your energy bills are going up, and you hear people have all kinds of potential reasons why that might be the case and potential solutions for that. Mark Levine, I want to know, what are you going to do to bring power bills down?
So whenever you get one of those bills, usually it's one that Dominion puts forward. They're really long. They're complicated. They're like 60 pages. And I have to spend all night reading them because I read all the words of the bills. But basically, the thing I think, and by the way, I've never taken any money from Dominion. I haven't done it since before it was cool. I just never have. Okay. The thing that I'm most concerned right now about is these data centers, because they're the ones who are coming into our communities and they're raising our electric bills. And if you know the way the electric grid works, you know how it works. There's a certain base and the cost per unit goes up as a lot of people want to use the grid. You know that, right? If your air conditioner, if everyone wants to turn the air conditioner on in a hot summer, the cost per unit goes up because they're using all this reserve stuff. So the data centers need a lot of electricity, and it raises everybody else's cost up. And I have a very simple solution. It's not that hard. If they want to come and they want to use Northern Virginia's terrific infrastructure, they want to use the smart people that live up here that make technology, they need to pay all the increase of everything they cost. And all you have to do is look at what it costs before they come in, look at what they cost after they come in, and instead of all of us paying more because they're there, they need to pay their fair share. I think that would go really far. The other thing is that, we need to fight climate change. Because I don't have to tell you, I live in Alexandria, right? The flooding gets worse and worse and worse every year. And so I remember fighting in the General Assembly to make sure that we joined in compacts with other states to lower the cost and to require Dominion to put forward clean energy. And I think that would also lower costs too, because you know what? Clean energy can be less expensive.
All right. Your time is up. Charles Sumpter, same question to you. Power bills are going up. What are you going to do to bring down power bills?
Absolutely. I have a thing with my friends where we put a bill on a thing, you spin it, you say, which one are you going to pay this month? Right? Because you just don't know. Because they are so expensive. Dominion bills are exorbitant. And so the issue that Mark talked about when it comes to data centers, I think is it for right now, is that they should be paying those increases. That should not be passed on to the taxpayer. We're already absorbing enough of that. As many of you know, I work for an environmental organization. And so this to me is a very issue that's really close and dear to my heart. It's also not something that can just be solved one day in one legislative session. This is something that's going to take a more longer term strategy. And one of the things I've been focusing on is creating a climate corps of students and young people across the state that's state funded that will get students involved in understanding climate change and understanding how to have clean energy and that there are jobs involved in that. And the next core of students who go to this program maybe in 10 years or so, we'll be able to understand these problems and be solving it and fixing it. But that's a longer term strategy that I've been focused on. But at the end of the day, it is Dominion who's causing these problems, and the state needs to stand up against these rate hikes to ensure that residents are not feeling that and paying that.
All right, same question to the next candidate, Delegate Elizabeth Bennett-Parker. Energy bills are going up. What are you going to do to bring them down?
Thank you so much. We are in a climate emergency, and I also have never taken any money from Dominion. A few different thoughts. I'm introducing a bill this year to require Virginia to adopt energy efficiency standards for new buildings in our building code. That's been a priority of the environmental community for years. It's been unsuccessful through the building code process, and that would do two things. It would help us reduce our emissions, and it would lower energy costs going forward. I also think that I know that I have co-patroned in the past that was successful legislation that directs the SEC regarding data centers to determine how much energy they're using and whether they're being classified correctly so that we can charge them correctly for how much energy they are using and bring rates down for everyone else. Finally, while not directly related, I think related to the general idea of climate and bringing costs down, I fully support the return of Alexandria, Virginia, the return of Virginia to the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. It's incredibly important to these goals. Alexandria alone, I heard flooding mentioned. Alexandria has received $6 million from that to address all of our flooding mitigation problems, and we need that money, and we need greenhouse gas emissions to be reduced. And so looking forward to seeing us back in Reggie in the future.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth Bennett-Parker. All right. Our next question is going to start with Charles Sumpter, then go to Elizabeth Bennett-Parker, then go to Mark Levine. And it is about a topic that we've heard a lot of people talking about, but the General Assembly has yet to vote on this, which is the right to work law, repealing the right to work law, which prohibits employers from requiring union membership as a condition of employment. There is a bill that has been introduced in the Senate by Senator Jennifer Carroll Foy to repeal the right to work law. Charles Sumpter, what's your opinion on getting rid of the right to work law?
I support it. I think that although companies have seen record profits over the last couple of years, workers have not. Workers have not. They've received the short end of the stick. This gives them an opportunity to actually be able to compete and make sure that they have the right protections that they need when they're working in the workplace. So in the General Assembly, I will support this bill by Senator Foy to repeal the Right to Work Act. I think we need to do it. It's way past time to do it. It's written in 1947. Times have changed. Times have changed. The Commonwealth needs to do it too.
Same question to Delegate Elizabeth Bennett-Parker. What's your position on repealing the right to work law?
I'm a previous labor union member and a strong supporter of unions. I believe I am proud to be the only candidate up here who has earned the endorsement of labor unions in this race, specifically the American Federation of State and Municipal Employees, as well as the Alexandria Firefighters, AAFF Local 2141. I have strongly supported repealing the right to work. I have co-patroned that bill in the past. I will continue to do it going forward. And previously, I have a lot of other support for labor initiatives, but you asked that question and said we didn't need to use our full 2 minutes. So I'll stop there.
Okay. All right. Was a round of applause for not taking up the full 2 minutes? I think it was. All right. Mark Levine, same question to you. What's your position on repealing Virginia's longstanding and controversial right to work law?
I have always supported it. I'm sorry, Governor Spanberger. I like you in most ways. I disagree with you on this. I would call it the right to freeload. I guess I disagree with this term. It's not about working. It's about the ability for non-union workers to take the benefits of union workers while destroying the union at the same time. And this whole term is really, it's kind of Orwellian to call it right to work because it's a right to destroy unions. And I think we need to rephrase what we say. I'm not blaming Michael Pope. He's using a commonly used term, but this is the wrong term for it. I will say that it's a lot easier to get endorsements when you know about an event in the past than when you're in Nashville, Tennessee, planning your wedding, and suddenly the sitting senator decides to resign. But you ask anyone in any union about Mark Levine, you talk to them, and you'll find out why they supported me in my long ago lieutenant governor campaign. I have proudly and strongly supported unions. And let me tell you something else about unions. It's not just about the unions. It's about the path to the middle class from people all over. What unions do, and this relates to, frankly, Governor Spanberger's apprenticeship issues, is that they teach people how to work and they pay them while doing it. Now, everyone else, you pay to learn a trade, you pay to go to community college, they pay you. They give you a good job. I remember when I went to the pipe fitters and they explained to me how they give a good wage and they keep learning. And I said to them, now wait a minute, because a lot of people, want us to give money for apprenticeships, which I support. And, how is it that you can pay them and how do you ever get the money back? And they said, they pay it forward. The people that they support as apprenticeships, they have the legal right to leave the union, but they never do because they remember from which they came, and then they help the next generation, and they help the next generation. It saves the state a lot of money. That's great, but what it really does, it provides a path to the middle class.
All right. Former Delegate Mark Levine, thank you so much for that. All right. Our next question is going to go first to Elizabeth Bennett-Parker, then Mark Levine, then Charles Sumpter. And we opened the questions up to the audience, and there was one question we got more than any other question, and it's the Israel-Palestine question in general. There was basically two flavors of the question. One had to do with the Israel Advisory Board. Do you support the continuation of Virginia's Israel Advisory Board? And the other one had to do with the definition of anti-Semitism, which the Virginia General Assembly has weighed in on recently. How should Virginia define anti-Semitism? So we're going to go first to Delegate Elizabeth Bennett-Parker. What are your thoughts on the Israel-Palestine issue?
Thank you for the question. The loss of civilian life in Israel and Palestine is heartbreaking. And it's absolutely unacceptable that Israel is refusing to let humanitarian aid into Gaza. I have deep concerns about the humanitarian crisis. And I believe in a future of peace and safety for all and a true permanent ceasefire. I've never had any interactions with the Virginia Israeli Advisory Board. I understand some of the companies that they've worked with in the past to bring to Virginia have been accused of worsening the conflict in Gaza, and that's very concerning to me. And we have a responsibility to make sure that our economic development efforts align with our values, including respect for human rights, international law, and the protection of civilians. And then I think I have voted previously in the past on the bill around anti-Semitism, and I believe that we should not be codifying into law a definition. We need to be careful around how we do that.
Okay. Good.
But obviously, we do not want any sort of discrimination, anti-Semitism, or any sort of discrimination against anyone. Very strongly, similarly concerned to see all of the attacks that have happened locally and hate crimes at all sorts of synagogues and places of worship as well.
Okay, great. Next candidate is former Delegate Mark Levine. What are your thoughts on the Israel-Palestine issue?
Well, about that issue, that's of course not something Virginia deals with. But the two things you did mention were the International Holocaust Remembrance Group definition of anti-Semitism, which I've read and I think is accurate. I think denying the Holocaust is wrong, and I think it's anti-Semitic. I'm sorry, it's anti-Jewish. And I think we cannot say that we're only against racism and we're only against homophobia and we're only against Islamophobia, but Jew hatred is okay. I think they're all wrong. All hatred is wrong. Misogyny is wrong. People need to let people live. And they shouldn't be saying, okay, we're going to hold Jews to this one standard and non-Jews to this other standard. Everyone should be held to the same standard. So when it comes to the VIAB, I think every country should be held to the same standard. And I think when people say, divest from Israel, I'm like, let's talk about that. Let's also talk about divesting from Sudan, where hundreds of thousands of people are being murdered as they're trying to wipe out whole civilizations. All right, let's talk about China, which is, let's face it, the second largest economy in the world, and the horrific things they do to the Uyghurs. So I just think we should have the same standard for everyone. And that's very important to me. The last thing I'll say about this, Terry McAuliffe, and I served under Terry McAuliffe, went all around the world providing jobs for Virginians. He went to Japan. He went all over. He was always like, I just got us $1 billion and more jobs, always. And I think we have to look at the economic impact of working with countries and seeing what helps and what doesn't help. One more thing about Israel. I hate the current Prime Minister of Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu. I think he's doing a terrible job. If I were in Israel, I would vote against him. I also hate the current President of the United States, Donald Trump. That doesn't mean I hate America. It means I hate the government.
Okay, thank you so much, former Delegate Mark Levine. Our next candidate is Charles Sumpter. What are your thoughts on the Israel-Palestine question?
I would just say it was terrible, the genocide that occurred in Palestine. This thing has been going on for so long. So many lives have been lost, and it's just heartbreaking. It really is. I have many friends who are Palestinian. I have many friends who are Jewish. What I don't do is pretend to understand their life, their story, and what they believe and how they come up. I can listen, I can be an ally, but I can't pretend to know what it's like to be Muslim. I can't pretend what it's like to be Jewish. But anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and all of it, it's wrong in any of its form. I know what it's like to be a Black man in America. I know what that's like to feel fear, to be targeted. I understand that. That's what being a human is about. And so I deeply empathize with those communities who are going through what's happening. I'm not in the General Assembly. I am a resident. I've never heard of this board until this week. But what I did realize is this board seems to be the only one of its kind. And so why is that? And so while I don't have all the answers, I think if I'm in the Senate, we could bring together groups from both sides and just try to hear maybe a commission to understand what this board does. What's the oversight of it? How much money is going to it? And could that go somewhere else? Are there other parts of the Virginia government that can oversee our interactions with foreign countries when it comes to business adventures? So I would just explore it. I can't sit here and say this is what I will do about it. I'm not there, but I would say I will look into it and be an ear to people who have concerns about it.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. I think if I've got my order right, the next question is going to start with Levine and then go to Sumpter and then go to Bennett-Parker. Okay. Candidates, please help me out if I screw this up because it's hard to keep into track of this. All right. The next question is going to start with Mark Levine, and it's about the constitutional amendments. We've got 4 of them that are under consideration. One of them on redistricting will require a statewide referendum in April. So the question is about the other 3. Would you like to see the other 3 on abortion rights, voting rights, and gay rights also on the April ballot? Or would you like to see those other 3 on the November ballot? Because all 4 of them could be on the April ballot, or the April ballot just could be the constitutional amendment. So what are your thoughts on what the best timing would be for those 4 constitutional amendments? Mark Levine, former Delegate Mark Levine, you're first on this.
This is why Michael Pope's a good moderator. I support all 4 of them, but I hadn't thought about the timing. But you know what? In those 5 seconds, I agree with you. I support them all so strongly. I want them all done as soon as possible. I used to be the chair of the Constitutional Subcommittee in the Virginia House of Delegates. I wrote 2 of those constitutional amendments, I'm proud to say, both the ones on felon disenfranchisement and the one on marriage equality. In fact, the original draft of marriage equality, I disagreed with because what it originally did is say there'll be no prohibition. I said, no prohibition. No, there has to be affirmative acceptance. I don't trust the Supreme Court. I don't trust administration. I want protections in our Constitution. And I disagreed with some people on that, but I got my way. And they came through my committee. Abortion rights, I have always been solidly pro-choice. I have 100% perfect A+ record from NARAL on all of that. Of course, I support that. And the redistrict thing, well, I got in a little trouble in the General Assembly redistricting because I said Amendment 1 was a bad idea. And a lot of people, including a lot of Democrats, said, Mark, gerrymandering's wrong. And I said, yes, it is wrong. And that's why we need a national anti-gerrymandering law. But allowing Texas to gerrymander, allowing Indiana to gerrymander, allowing all the red states to gerrymander, and the blue states don't fight back, to me, that's like fighting in the boxing ring and saying, well, it's unfair to hit the below the belt, so they're kicking me below the belt, but I won't break the rules and kick them back. Look, unfortunately, we have to fight fire with fire. Until we have a federal anti-gerrymandering law, We have got to fight fire with fire. It's unfair. It's wrong. Alex remembers coming. I did a whole monthly meetup on gerrymandering where I explained how it worked. I brought a game. I have written extensively on this. And I have to say this. At the time, I said, I know this amendment is wrong. I know it's going to hurt us. Call me Cassandra. You know, Cassandra, it said everything was going to go wrong and no one believed her. And I'm afraid I'm Cassandra now because it happened. We have to fix it.
All right. You're out of time. Former Delegate Mark Levine. All right. We're going to, candidates, I'm going to switch up the order a little bit to allow Elizabeth Bennett-Parker to answer. And also, Elizabeth, if you want to, when you're done with the question, if you want to give a closing statement before you walk out the door, that'd be fine. Okay, so 2 minutes on the clock. You don't have to use all the 2 minutes, but Delegate Bennett-Parker, what are your thoughts on, so clearly you have to have the redistricting amendment in April in order for it to work. What about those other 3 amendments? Should they be on the April ballot, or is it a better idea to keep them around for the November ballot?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Similarly, hadn't really thought about the timing. I strongly support all of the amendments. I have co-patroned all of them. I have the honor of carrying the second amendment to provide a fundamental right to vote, as well as to automatically restore voting rights after incarceration. There is also a disability rights component to that amendment, making sure that folks that are placed in guardianships do not automatically lose the right to vote. Or only lose the right to vote if they do not understand the act of voting. This is all of these amendments are incredibly important, but that one in particular, I am picking up, or I have this amendment now, but it's been carried by a lot of other women, amazing Black women in the General Assembly who've been working on this for decades, the late Yvonne Miller and Senator Mamie Locke, among others. So I'm honored to be carrying that amendment this year and having passed it last year. And obviously then it will go to the voters. To get to your question, obviously the redistricting amendment needs to happen in April. I think for the others, yes, I want them to get done as quickly as possible. I also want them to get done. And I think we need to make sure that the voters are informed about the messaging and that we turn out as many folks as possible for those, because we want to make sure that we ensure the full continuum of reproductive health care in our Constitution, that we have the right to abortion, that we have the right to IVF and contraception. I want to make sure that we are repealing the ban on gay marriage in our Constitution. I want to make sure that as many folks can vote as possible. And then moving on to a closing statement, I thank you all so much for being here. It's really incredible to see a packed room on such short notice. I am honored to have the support again of Senator Adam Ebbin, Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, Congressman Don Beyer, and so many more. I'm proud of the record that I've had over the past 4 years in the House, that I was named the most progressive legislator last year by the Virginia Progressive B-Plan. Among others, I have the endorsements of labor unions as well as Freedom Virginia and Vote Mama. I'm a hard worker. I am dedicated to this community. I was out knocking doors before I came here. I would be honored to have the opportunity to represent you in the Senate, and I ask for your consideration tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Delegate Elizabeth Bennett-Parker, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming today. All right. So as promised, we're going to finish our round of questions about the amendments. Charles Sumpter, you're up next on this. So the redistricting amendment has to be in April. What about the other 3 on abortion rights, voting rights, and gay rights? Is it a good idea to have them, all 4 of them, in April, or just one in April and the other 3 in November?
I am not going to take 2 minutes to answer this. Absolutely yes, as soon as possible.
A man of few words. Okay, I hadn't anticipated that, but all right. So now we're moving on. Okay, so our next question is about transportation. So my order's all messed up now. I guess I'll start with Charles Sumpter and then go to Mark Levine. Transportation. So according to the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, every dollar invested in Northern Virginia transit generates 160% revenue on investment in statewide revenue. What are your mass transit plans? So transportation question to Charles Sumpter.
One of the things that I'm thinking about is, and I think I talked about this earlier, about how much Northern Virginia, Alexandria particularly, puts into the federal budget, the state budget, and gives to the state. When it comes to tolls that residents pay up here, I want to see that money comes back to infrastructure needs here, not anywhere else. And that's in education. That happens in other ways. There's so much tolls, particularly because the state runs like $3.95 and only different tolls, $4.95. That money, I don't know how much Alexandria or Northern Virginia ever sees. And so looking into that to make sure that those funds are coming back so we can work on our roads, so that we can work on things that are more local to our residents, to the residents of not only just Alexandria, but Arlington, parts of Fairfax as well. So that is something that I've been thinking about a lot. And I like to commend first what the local government has been doing, right? In terms of rapid bus transit, BRT, all of that, Metro, continue to fund Metro commuter lines to make sure that people do not have to be in cars. That's not always the way. And also expanded lanes is not always the way as well. That doesn't always adjust traffic needs. So really looking into VDOT and making sure that we're holding them accountable and looking at different ways to support localities who are struggling with traffic, who are struggling with transportation, and doing a lot of these things on their own.
All right, Charles Sumpter, thank you so much. Former Delegate Mark Levine, what are your mass transit plans?
So maybe I'm channeling my inner Joe Biden, but my first thought when you said that, Michael, was trains. I love trains. In fact, I remember in Europe going around quickly from place to place and seamlessly on a train. And I liked to take the train from Alexandria to Richmond, but unfortunately, sometimes it was 2 or 3 hours late, and then I didn't get to assembly on time. So unfortunately, I had to stop doing that during session. Do you know why our trains are late? I mean, some people know this, some people don't. The reason is we don't own the tracks. Did you know that? The tracks are privately owned, and the cargo takes precedence over the passengers. So, you know what? I mean, I do want it's not really Amazon, but I do want my stuff on time. Is it that quick? Oh, I'm sorry. You're showing me stuff. Okay. No, I do want my stuff on time, but if my package arrives 2 hours late, that's less important than if I'm 2 hours late to my job interview. So one thing I would first do is prioritize passengers over cargo. I do know that Ralph Northam, as governor, proposed a new bridge across the Potomac. Think about that. That's very expensive. But we started the process when I was in the General Assembly. And let's talk about Metro, because Metro is the second largest public transit in the United States, and it's not that good. I mean, I love Metro. I love going on Metro, but a lot of people stopped because of COVID. I think there's a lot of, let's just say, administrative cost in Metro that I don't think needs to be there. I think there are ways to save money on Metro. Don't get me wrong. I want to fund every bit of Metro. But I think there's a bit of waste with regard to Metro. I do think, by the way, the city's doing a real good job with the dash buses, which are free. They're actually much better than it was when I started. I want you to know I supported the Potomac Yards Metro from the get-go. I want to salute city government for that. There are lots of things we could do with mass transit, but one thing we don't need is a bunch more cars on the highway.
Okay, former Delegate Mark Levine. All right, our next question is going to go first to Mark Levine, then Charles Sumpter. It is about student journalism. I think we've got some student journalists in the crowd tonight. All right, and the setup here is the Alexandria School Board recently considered a proposal that would take retaliatory action against student journalists, and if they wrote for local news outlets like Alexandria Times, Alex Now, that their journalism privileges could be revoked. This was a policy that was considered by the Alexandria School Board. So the question is about a New Voices bill. So the proposal here would be to prohibit school boards from taking retaliatory censorship. Mark Levine, you're first on this, then Charles Sumpter. What are your thoughts on the Virginia General Assembly taking action to prohibit school boards from engaging in retaliatory censorship?
Well, my first reaction, Michael, is I'm horrified. I have to admit, I didn't follow that school board meeting, but anyone who proposed censoring students for telling the truth, I want to know who's on that school board because I'm not going to elect them anymore. That's how severe I feel that is wrong. We're fighting a Trump administration that is constantly trying to censor us, that is changing our media, changing CBS. Walter Cronkite is spinning in his grave because they're trying to make everything into Fox News. And I know Fox News. I've been on Fox News. I know how they roll. And to say that students couldn't be a local journalist, to say that students couldn't write in a school newspaper, you know what, even anonymously about a teacher. Now, I want to say it can go too far. Obviously, I don't want students using hate speech. I don't want anyone preaching violence. But to me, criticizing the government is the heart of what journalism is. And if you're a kid in school, criticizing your school, you have every right to do that. Every right to do that. I believe in free speech. And I talked with a young man about this. I don't see him he's somewhere in the crowd, but, and I have to admit, I hadn't heard of the issue before. Okay. I didn't attend that school board meeting. And I said, absolutely, I will support the Voices Act.
Charles Sumpter, same question to you. What are your thoughts on the Virginia General Assembly taking action to prevent censorship and retaliation to student journalists?
We should never retaliate against student journalists. The newsrooms, our media today is in such disarray that we need more bright, young voices contributing to that with their ideas, their thoughts. They think of things we haven't even thought of, and they use social media in ways none of us could even imagine. So who are we to stop that? Who are we not to allow that to happen? Absolutely not. Students should have the ability to learn first, but this is what this is about, jobs, right? How you do a job right? You tell the facts. You learn the story. You go on the street. You walk the beat. That's how you learn. That's how you develop a skill set. And so absolutely would support this and make sure students have the ability to tell their stories in the way they want to.
Great. Thank you so much, Charles Sumpter. Okay, we have a question online. So we've taken some questions from the group here in the audience. So we're taking some questions online. I think we're going to go to Mark Levine first on this one. And wait, did I get that wrong? We had Charles Sumpter first and then Mark Levine. Thank you for keeping me on board with this. All right. The question from online has to do with the sheriff collaborating with immigration officials. What are your thoughts on the Alexandria sheriff working with immigration officials? Charles Sumpter, you're first, and then Mark Levine.
Yeah. So we can't ban ICE, unfortunately. But we don't have to damn work with them. We don't have to help them do their job. And so, no, I don't think the sheriff should be assisting ICE officers who are here in Alexandria without a warrant, and a judicial warrant by that, not an administrative warrant. And so I would look at ways to ensure that there are protections in the state, that if there are ICE agents who come out, that they have to have a judicial warrant, obviously have to be unmasked. Obviously, we look at ways to stop deputizing police officers to be able to do ICE functions. Deny actions to the DMV records, ID records. We don't need to help them do their job. They're here already. If they want to do it, they're going to have to fight with us to do it. But we're not going to help them do it.
Okay, Charles Sumpter. All right. The same question to former delegate Mark Levine.
So I've been working on this issue since the first Trump administration. Remember when they were putting kids in cages? I put forward a bill, which I'm proud to say passed into law. Let's talk about the situation before my bill became law. Before my bill became law in 2020, and what the situation is that local law enforcement was required to work with ICE. That's because Republicans controlled it for a very long time. When Democrats took over, I put forward a bill. I worked with Alfonso Lopez, and we said in our bill, which passed the House, no cooperation with ICE, period. And it passed the House, and I twisted some arms, and it passed the House. And then it went over to the Senate. And the Senate said, Mark, you're part right. We're going to say that you don't have to cooperate with ICE, but we're not going to stop cooperation with ICE. So if you want to know why the reason in Arlington County and Fairfax County do not cooperate with ICE is because my law made it possible. And I'm proud of that. But there are 131 sheriffs, including Sheriff Casey in Alexandria, who I think are wrong and who are cooperating with ICE and shouldn't be. Now, I have talked with Sheriff Casey at length about this. I even brought him to my monthly meetup. He really hadn't talked publicly about it very much until I brought him to my monthly meetup, and he had to face 75 people. By the way, I wasn't elected. I was just a citizen trying to get this issue talked about. And they told him what they thought. He's not going to change his mind, folks. But if you bring me to Richmond, I will write a law requiring him not to cooperate. And then he and 130 other sheriffs won't. Last thing, I've been working to unmask ICE. Again, not as an elected official, just as a concerned citizen. I got a commitment just a month. I didn't know Adam Ebbin was going to resign. A month ago, it took me a long time, by the way, to get this. I've been working for several months from the Alexandria police to unmask ICE, to require them to ID themselves before arresting anyone, or they're going to be arrested themselves. I got that done without being an elected office.
All right. Former Delegate Mark Levine, thank you so much. All right. We are pushing up right at 8 o'clock. So here's my plan, candidates. I'll ask one more question and then I'll give you an opportunity to give your closing statements. So I believe we're going with Levine first on this one and then Sumpter. Okay. So then for closing, I'll go Sumpter first and then Levine. All right. The question is on ranked choice voting. And which I think Mark, you already brought this up earlier, but this is lots of supporters probably in this room, lots of people who might not like it as much. What are your thoughts on expanding ranked choice voting in Virginia?
I support ranked choice voting. I have voted for ranked choice voting. I have co-patroned ranked choice voting. I support democracy. And if you can't get your first choice, you should at least get your second choice. And if you can't get your second choice, you should at least get your third choice. Ranked choice voting would have been very useful in this exact race, right? And in fact, look, I'm a member of the ADC. I've been a member of the Democratic Committee for, decades. I moved here in 2001. I wish they had done that. Arlington's done it. And I don't mean to criticize them. They're good people. I like these people. They should have had ranked choice voting in this race. I would support requiring ranked choice voting throughout Virginia.
All right. Charles Sumpter, your thoughts on ranked choice voting?
Absolutely. I support it. Again, just like Mark said, it would have been a tool for this election that I wish we had in our toolbox. So I absolutely support it.
Short and to the point, Charles Sumpter. All right. Well, now you got a whole 2 minutes to give a closing statement to the crowd. Same for you, Mark Levine. 2 minutes on your closing statements. Charles Sumpter, you're first.
Thank you so much, Alexandria, for hosting this here tonight. For all of you people in this room, thank you for standing up for democracy. This isn't easy on all of us, on our committees, on you. You're taking time out of your day. You're coming here to hear about issues that are complicated, that are about the Constitution and are hard, but you care and you're here. And I thank you for being here, for supporting us, man, no matter who you vote for, no matter who you support. We're all Democrats in here trying to do the best for our community. I grew up where I grew up and never thought in my mind, on my wildest imaginations as a kid, that I'd be running for office for anything yet. But I am. And I'm thankful for my support. I'm thankful for my family who's watching online, who's texting and yelling and sending me memes and smiley faces. At the end of the day, we're humans. We're people. And we care about our community. And so I thank Elizabeth when she was here, and I thank Mark as well for doing this whole thing with us. It's not been the best thing, not been the most fun event that I've done coming out of vacation, going back to work. But this is something that I deeply care about. And I think it was incredibly important to be here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I look forward to get to know more of you.
All right. Charles Sumpter, thank you so much. All right. And now your closing statement, Mark Levine.
So, first of all, I don't know if you've done this, Catherine, but I would love if you'd pan the room. Maybe you have. You've done it. Okay, great. This is democracy. I am so proud of all of you for caring so much and filling this room and showing you care about democracy. This is what it looks like. When I found out about this race, I was in Nashville, Tennessee. My fiance, Brian, and I were working on our ketubah, which is going to be in Hebrew and Arabic and English, a Jewish-Muslim wedding. We are our own Israel, Palestine, and then I find out that our senator has resigned and there's going to be an election. And I sent out a notice to everybody. I think the election will be Tuesday. And people are like, no, it won't be Tuesday. And it's Tuesday. And it's hard. And I was a former delegate. I didn't have any staff. I called my staff. One's doing a great job here. One's doing a great job there. One's doing a great job there. I brought in my two best interns and they're good. And they are my campaign managers. And thank you to Barrett and Danny for doing that. And let me tell you something. I don't care that we had 2 days and another candidate had months. I know that we have created something where it's been electric. And I have just loved hearing from all the people I've known for years and the people I've just met who are electrified by the idea that this is the time of emergency, that we need to fight this power with everything we've got. We need Virginia legislators who are willing not just to do good small stuff, but really fight for the big stuff, to make big changes. I'm the guy that, sometimes goes against the leadership, and that's okay, because I will work for you. I don't work for leadership. I don't work for boss. I work for you. Are my boss. And if you elect me, I will do what I've always done. We'll keep Mark's monthly meetups. I'll still answer every email. I'll still meet with every one of you. And I'll do what you say because you're my boss. And I hope you'll elect me tomorrow.
All right, former delegate Mark Levine. All right. Can I get a hand for all of our candidates? Elizabeth Bennett-Parker, Charles Sumpter, Mark Levine. Thank you so much for coming out. Also, a round of applause for Grassroots Alexandria and Network Nova. Thank you so much. And I'm going to hand the microphone over to Network Nova.
Get on my live stream over here, folks. How are you feeling? I hope you had a good time in the room tonight. We were super successful. This was very exciting to be in the room. I could tell you the room is packed. It was great to see Lauren Burke in the room. She's a badass. And Michael Pope was so prepared. He had all this equipment. It really looked good in here. Let me see if I can get the camera going. But I want to remind everybody out there that you have to vote. Our motto is, when you vote, we win. And I hope you understand this election is Tuesday, January 13. Polling places will be open. And let me just tell you, you probably already know that, but from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. in Alexandria, the Charles Bentley Central Library is open. The Charles Houston Recreation Center in Arlington, Aurora Hills Library will be open. And also in Annandale, a new location, John Calvin Presbyterian Church. So make sure that if you care about democracy, we know that you're here tonight because you do. I have to say, I also enjoyed looking at the chat. Great shout out. I see Kathy Hoekstra out there. How you doing, Kathy? And I see I also see our friends, Robin Warner. I see Network Nova. I see Paul Krasek out there. Hey, Paul, good to see you. Anyways, I want to tell everybody that Network Nova Live has a Substack. We go live weekly on Fridays and on Sunday. Michael, do you want to say some things?
Thank you so much for watching. We had a great night here tonight, and I'd like to thank Network Nova and all of the viewers. So thanks for watching. I'm going to hand this back over to your host, and look forward to appearing on Network Nova sometime soon.
Yes. Yeah, well, I'm glad you joined tonight. There's so many questions that didn't get asked, but I hope we can do this more. And like I said, we go live on Fridays with our power lunch, and Fennell Norton and I do the armchair pundits on Sunday nights. I'm going to say goodnight because I'm sitting in this little chair. It's a little awkward. And goodbye, everybody. Make sure you vote. When we vote, we win.